Live. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hear Us Out. We back again. We back again. Hear Us Out is the music and media blueprint by me and Lottie. I'm River. Lottie's on her way. So we're gonna kick it off and then she'll jump on as soon as she can join us, y'all. Happy Sunday, everybody. Shout out to all of y'all that are tuning in live with us. What's up? What's up? What's up? Yo, can you guys believe it? This is episode 8. Y'all been holding it down with us strong for 8 episodes. And honestly, shout out to all y'all. We love it. We love it here. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about, look, y'all voted again on Twitter, right? First of all, it was a tie. So of course, me and Lottie had to be the tiebreakers, you know what I'm saying? So today we're going to be talking about building your personal brand. Because that feels like a really good follow-up to, last week's episode when we were talking about navigating imposter syndrome. So today we're going to be talking about some brand teams, which is really exciting. Okay. When it comes to navigating like just the music and media industries in general, I think, and this is also entertainment too, I think there are so many different layers and different like ways that you can be involved in this industry. And so having a clear brand and building a personal brand for yourself can help a lot. Um, it's something that I'm actively working on. I'm no expert at it, but I could definitely share just from my own experience. And then I know Lottie is as well too, especially when you're going through like those rebranding and similar to our pivot episode, when you're trying to really start a career in these industries, music, media, entertainment, all of that, like having a personal brand and having a solid sense of what that is can be super, super, super helpful. So we're going to kick it off and talk about that today. And yeah, I'm so geeked to have all y'all here. What's up, everybody? Like I said, Lottie will be joining us shortly. Yeah, so let's talk about what even is a brand, right? Like, what is your personal brand? And like, I think one of the biggest things that I've heard talked about too when it comes to just like being in this industry is like, what's your story? Like, what's your story? Why are you doing this? Why are you here? Like, why does it matter? You know what I mean? I think that a lot of times too, when people ask that question about what your story is as it pertains to your personal brand, people there sometimes tends to be like this idea or this notion that like there has to be a struggle or something in order for people to be interested in it, or there has to be an extreme amount of glamour or luxury and things like that in order for people to be interested. And I think we're going to really talk a little bit more about just the different aspects of how you can build your personal brand even if you may not have any of those types of situations. And more specifically, one of the biggest things that I think is important to consider when you're talking about building your personal brand is just being authentic, being authentically you, being yourself, um, in whatever capacity that means. I think one of the coolest examples about just the story part, right? Like, for example, Lottie's story, and I love this, is like the pivot that she had into, the music industry and the media industry. Like, she was not always doing that professionally per se. It was something that she was always passionate about, but on a professional level she kind of pivoted into it and has now kind of re-identified and rebuilt what her brand means and looks like, you know what I mean? And so that's something that's super, super dope, and I'm excited to kind of get into that for sure. But the biggest thing, that we want to kind of kick it off and talk about is like, what is your story? Right? Why does your story matter? What inspires you to be doing this? What niche do you provide? What gap are you looking to fill? Especially in this industry where there's so many different levels to what creativity can look like. There's so many different avenues that you can be exploring in these industries. What do you provide? What's your story? What's your backstory? What's your skill set that people can be benefiting from knowing, learning, etc.? You know what I mean? Oh, just give me 1 second, y'all. We gonna get Lottie in here. Okay. Y'all know me and Lottie, we good for singing and dancing on Hear Us Out. So I hope y'all be singing and dancing with us. We just be happy. We just be enjoying life, living life. You know what I mean? But yeah, just give me 1 second. Let me try and We do this on Zoom for those of y'all that don't know, I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but Lottie and I are not actually even on the same coast. Like, I'm in LA, she's in New York. So that's why we'll be on Zoom doing it. And it's a vibe. Honestly, we have so much fun doing it. Just give me 1 second. Let me try and get her in. Singing, always singing. Okay, yeah, she'll be jumping on in just a second. So yeah, when we're talking about, I think one of the coolest parts too, when it comes to, and we're going to talk about several different things, what it means, like what it looks like to build your personal brand in real life, and then also what it looks like online. And we'll definitely be sharing a couple different hacks as it pertains to like how you can be doing that, leveraging networking opportunities to elevate the brand, your personal brand, all of those different things as well. But we do want to start off just by talking about, actually defining what your brand is. What do you have to offer? What is your skill set? And then once you identify that, how are you working to become an expert at that? And that's an ongoing process. It's not necessarily something that you're going to master immediately right away, but it'll definitely happen and grow over time. But how are you becoming an expert, and how are you articulating that to your audience, to your community, what have you? I think those are some of the biggest parts about it. One of the things that I thought about, when I was really deciding career-wise what I wanted to do, this is the pre-college era. I was like, okay, I know I'm super, super, super passionate about TV film. I'm passionate about being on the stage as an actor. I'm passionate about being on the screen as an actor, right? And being a theater actor and being a TV and film actor, yes, the term actor is the same across the board, but those approaches and those audiences are different. Branding a theater actor is much different than branding a TV and film actor, solely because of the avenue, the medium in which the performances take place in. You know what I mean? The approach is also very different. The skill set behind what goes into that. And so one of the things that was really big for me when I was really trying to decide, like, okay, I know I want to be in the entertainment industry, and I know that I want to be an actor. It was interesting, my personal story. Like, I went to theater school for college. I told my parents, I'm like, Mom, Dad, I'm going to theater school. And I went to theater school for college. And when I went to school, I was like, I am going to be an acting major. This is what I'm going to do. I have this scholarship to this school. I'm going to act, and that's going to be it. And as soon as I started the program, I realized there was a moment for me personally where I was like, oh, you're limiting yourself by only allowing yourself to be known as an actor, when creatively you're inspired by a lot of different avenues. You like to direct, you like to produce, you like to write, you know what I'm saying? So maybe your personal brand isn't just an actor. And then outside of acting, I ended up deciding, wait a second, I'm actually not going to be an acting major at this university. I'm actually going to do a theater arts major, which would allow for me to kind of have my hands in everything. It allowed for me to direct. It allowed for me to be a writer. It allowed for me to be a producer. It allowed for me to learn some photography, some set design, some costume and wardrobe design. Like, it allowed for me to have my hands in a lot of different things. And what ended up coming from that, and what ended up evolving from that, was me being able to identify my own personal brand as, now I call myself a multi-hyphenate artist, right? Because there are so many different things that I do and so many different things that I have my hands in. But one of the things that I'm learning is that, um, sometimes that's harder for people to really understand, where you can be helpful, where you can be useful and things like that, if they aren't really clear on, wait a minute, I thought you were acting. Now you're doing this, now you're doing that thing. And I think that that's something that's super interesting when we're talking about building a personal brand, because it's easy to put yourself in a box. And sometimes you grow and you evolve, and your passions change and your interests change. And so you shift because of that. And then you have to start thinking about, well, if my audience only knows me as this one thing, how am I communicating to them? How am I articulating to them that I'm also in this other lane too, and how am I being clear about that? So that was some of the thoughts that I was having, as it pertains to just defining my own personal brand back then, was like really having that come to Jesus moment, if you will, where I was like, wow, actually, I think that I'm more than just that one thing. And I think that I want to be able to explore more than one thing. And I want to be known as not just one thing. I don't want to be known as River the actor. but River the creative, River the visionary, whatever the case may be for yourself, you know what I mean? I think that that's a big part of the analysis, I guess, or the thought process that goes into, okay, who am I and what am I trying to contribute? What is that skill set? What is that? I want to become an expert at this thing. I want to work on this thing. Like, what does that actually look like? And how can I be putting that out there? And sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of it happens in execution too, when you're out and you're trying to figure out, okay, I know I want to be a writer. Right. I want to be a photographer, take pictures. I want to be a rapper, rap. I want to be a singer, sing. I think that those are the important things to think about, when you're deciding and really trying to define, like, okay, what is it? What's the lane that I'm going into? What am I about to be working on? Like, a lot of it will come in the execution. You'll think you want to do this one thing and you'll start to really dabble in it a little bit, and it'll help you in that execution and that trying to do those things to really define what that actual personal brand ends up becoming. Like I said, for me, I did it, and then I was like, oh, I actually like doing all these other things too. And it came from me just going for it. It came from me being like, yes, I am going to get out the hood and I'm going to go and I'm going to act. And I want to be on all of the Broadway stages and I want to do all of that. And then I went and I did it and I was like, whoa, I'm acting now, but I just met this really cool playwright and now I'm interested in that. And I met this really cool director and I'm also interested in that. How can I be what path can I forge for myself when it comes to that? And how can my audience or my community or my supporters really be clear on what I have to offer? So just keeping those things in mind. Give me 1 second, y'all. Sorry, I got some tech teams going on in the background. I hope y'all can still hear me. I wish there was a way that I could know. Like, I wish that there was a interactive way, because on my thing, it said my computer just notified me that I'm muted, but I think y'all can still hear me. But hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, I think I'm in. Happy Sunday. What's up, Emotional Taco? What's up, Boss 2.0? Good to see you. Welcome. I see y'all in the chat. Y'all be coming through, okay? Y'all really be coming through. I love it. So yeah, so we started out, by talking about, okay, so defining your brand. What do you want it to be? What are those skill sets that you have to offer? How are you communicating that and articulating that? And then that second part that I touched on a little bit is like, what's your story? Why you? What brought you to this moment? What inspired you to do this? What's the motivation behind everything that you're doing? What makes you passionate about it? Why should people care that it's coming from you? And if they don't, why are you going to continue doing it? You know what I mean? I think that that's a big part of all of it. I feel like I said, I give Lottie's example often because those are the stories that I tend to be like, drawn to, is like those moments of bravery where you're like, you know what? I am a whole engineer right now. And I think that I just want to go and write music and sing. So I'm going to go and do it. And that's my story. And now as a singer, that's my story. And my story can help to inspire other people as they're defining what their brand looks like and who they are and what they're doing and why, right? I think a lot of times too, when we're thinking about it, like some of our favorite, when I think of some of the most like well-known artists of color specifically, a lot of them, especially if they're the OGs, the ones that have been in the game for a while, when I think about it from a TV film landscape, I'm thinking, Denzel Washington, Viola Davis, you know what I mean? When I think on the music side, even the stories, we see the stories from a lot of Jay-Z has a crazy story of, how he got to this point where he is right now. Kanye, Kendrick Lamar, they all have these stories of what they had to do to get to where they are right now. And a lot of times that story, their background, that context actually helps to garnish other audiences and, supporters, because it's an inspiration, right? It's like, if I could do it, you could do it too. and those are the types of things that I think really matter and really are really important when you sit down and you really think about like, okay, how do I want to put myself out there? Why does what I'm doing matter to me? And if I know why it matters to me, if I know why it matters, to my community, I think that speaks volumes. I think that that's like one of the most important things, right? When you're thinking about it, because that's the stuff that keeps people going. It keeps people listening because they're inspired by what you're saying, what you're saying, what your story is telling, and things like that. One of my favorite music artists of all time is Nipsey Hussle, right? And a lot of his personal brand is why I was even on board, you know what I mean? Before I even think about, the music and all of that, but just his personal ethos, why he was doing what he was doing, why it mattered, why he was, really like out in the streets in his city, making it happen, all of that mattered, you know what I mean? And that made me become a fan. It made me become an active and avid supporter of it, because it was like, dang, you're inspiring me. We're from the same city. We may not be necessarily from the quote unquote same hood. I'm from the other side of town, but I get it. You know what I mean? And so I think I think that your story behind everything, that ethos, that reason, that like why, the big why is super important when you're trying to identify like why you're doing something, what your personal brand is going to be. And it helps you, the more clear you are on, what your personal brand is, the better. Because as you continue to grow and evolve within this industry, there's a lot that can come to you. The industry shifts a lot, as fashion shifts, as trends shift, and we've all seen it, right? The more clear sense of self, the more authentic you are with yourself. Hey, Lottie girl, the better, because it stops you from getting lost in the sauce. And it's so easy to get lost in the sauce, you know what I mean? But the more clear you can be, the better. What's up, Lottie?
Hi. Sorry I'm late. How are you?
You on time. You made it when you were supposed to make it. Hey girl, hey.
Hey,
It look good.
Harmony.
It look good, sis. Happy Sunday.
Thank
Wow.
you. Happy Sunday. I had to go to like an influencer thing. It's a long story. But
Speaking of influence, you see, that's what we were just
God.
talking. I was just talking a little bit about, the power of influence as it pertains to defining your personal brand. And we're just giving some
Ah,
examples. I gave you
okay.
as an example of like, how your story, when we're talking about what's your story, what's the story behind it. And it's like your story is one of like, I was not in music first. I was a
Yeah,
whole,
at
I
all.
just can't every single time. Like I was whole in a whole other way different industry, medical
Totally,
industry,
totally different.
and
Yeah.
shifted, and that's my story. And now I'm here and I'm creating an impact and influence. Yeah, so we were just talking about it. What's up? Welcome. Episode 8.
Happy to
Yeah,
be here. Episode 8. Thanks for rocking with us, guys.
we love it. But yeah, so we just kind of talked a little bit about, talking about story, what's your story and why that matters as it pertains to the brand. And then also just
Mm-hmm.
being the power of being authentically yourself, and how, when you double down on being yourself, it can stop you from getting labels put on you. It can stop you from getting lost in the sauce. It can stop you from
Yes.
not having a clear brand identity and things like that. So that's kind of what we dabbled in a little bit, you know.
Okay. Good stuff.
You
Good
know.
stuff.
So what are some of your like main, like when you think about defining and like building a personal brand, like what are some of those main like components or aspects that come to mind for you?
Yeah, you know what's so interesting? So actually at this event, it was kind of like a workshop that touched on some of this stuff, and something that resonates really strongly with me when it comes to personal branding is the anti-niche, which is, so for the most part, when it comes to social media, people are like, you need to pick a niche and sub niches and only talk about those topics. But when it comes to personal branding, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to pigeonhole yourself into a very specific sector or category. Like for instance, like I work in music, so I talk about music a lot, but I also love tech, emerging tech especially, and I've worked in those fields, so I talk about that. But I also love fashion, so I talk about that. I also love social media, I talk about that. I also love pop culture, I talk about that. It's like really, when it comes to personal branding, it's personal. It's about you, the person. It's not necessarily so much about the content. So like when it comes from you, that's your brand in more words or less.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I love that you said the anti-niche. Like that's fire. That's super fire. But that's kind of what we were talking about too. Like not putting yourself in the box. Like don't let yourself get put in the box when it comes to this. You know, I had given an example of like when I first started in this industry, like I was so gung-ho. I was like, I am just going to be a theater actor. Like that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be on Broadway and that's going to be it. And then I realized after going to school, like, oh, actually I'm passionate about a lot more than that. And my brand is actually probably going to be way more similar to an onion in the sense that it'll have layers because of the fact that it's not just one thing that keeps me going. And it's not just one thing. It's not just one medium that I'm going to use to articulate my story in that way. And I don't want to just be known as River the actor. You know, I don't want to just be known as River the theater.
Right. No, can we talk about this? Because so when I was coming up with I had to change my social media handles to make them consistent across the board, except for Snapchat, because they don't let you change. But I tried really hard to avoid doing like a lot of music or a lot of the music because I was like, I'm not just a music person. And, you know, it's interesting because when you think of people like, you know, Rihanna and Beyonce and Adele, like they are just them, right? It's like, yes, like they're predominantly known for music, but the reason why, especially Rihanna, has been so successful at branching into other things is because she never was defined solely by music, right? And that's how she can be a beauty queen and she can be, you know, an entrepreneur in all different ways. And fashion, it's like, and the thing is, these are all things that we had seen as she was a musician that she resonated with. She had been known as a fashion icon. She had been known as a girl whose beat was laid, right? It's like, so when she went into those fields, they're like, oh, of course, she's been doing it the whole time. And I think that's something that's really cool too, when you look at all of these artists, especially that are what I like to call world builders, right? It's like they create a whole universe around who they are. Tyler, the Creator's really good at this. Travis Scott, really good at it. It's like all these extensions of the music. So
And
it's
I
not
think,
just that medium.
no, yeah. And I think it goes into, and we have this conversation almost in every episode too, but it always goes back to doubling down on your passion and then becoming an expert at that thing, right? Like one of the coolest parts, I love Rihanna is such a good example on the music side. If we have any TV film folks out here that are also listening, Issa Rae is another good comparable example on the TV film side.
Issa Rae is that girl. The way she's building her empire. Oh, so
I mean, world builders, like you said, I love world builders. I love that you said world builders because that's truly it. There's so many layers to all of these individuals that we're naming, their creativity, and they don't allow for the industry to put them in one box, in one container, because they just double down on their passions.
Yeah.
They become experts at it. And
Hello?
and to become an expert, it, like I said earlier, is an ongoing process, but it's the act of consistently learning more about what it is that
and
you're
taking people on that journey with you too, right?
Yes, for sure, definitely. Because when I look at Rihanna, and even Rihanna and Issa, two examples, like when I look at both of them, it's like you really just have to be open and just go with it. Like Issa, I started following Issa way back on YouTube days. For Black girls. Like I read the book, like that was a big part of my thesis for college, all type of stuff. And so I had been following, you know, her journey, and same with Rihanna. Like I am big Music of the Sun. Like I'm a big Rihanna stan, like day one. Like when people were saying,
dude,
I was like,
Honda Replay, I knew what was up with her.
The replay was a bop. I don't care what nobody says, okay? No, but it's true. Like we followed them, we followed their journey, right? And they brought us into it. And when you lay the foundation, you know, there were hints at what could come, right? To Lottie's point, we always saw, like from the beginning, Rihanna always had like a very I say bold stance on the fashion side. I say a bold stance on the makeup side, like on the beat side, like all of it, like a very bold stance. Anytime we saw her on the carpet, it was a statement, right? Same concept with Issa. It's like every single piece of content that we saw her touch, it was authentic, it was real, it was honest, it was just her. And we continue to watch through that journey. And now every single thing that has come since has had their communities involved in it in some capacity, in some way, shape, or form, which I think is super dope when it comes to
Ooh,
building
I
out
love the
that
fact
brand.
that you brought up community, because that's huge, right? Because like, so with Issa, interestingly enough, like, you know, she had all these different companies that were vying for her to have a deal with them. And they had wanted her to change so many aspects of Awkward
So
Black Girl,
much.
but she knew who her community was and she knew what her brand was. And she was like, I'm not deviating from this for a
Right.
check or for notoriety or for nothing. And thank God, right? Because she would not be the media queen that she is today.
And I
If she's
mean, and
like, I'm gonna, you know, make the lead like more light skin, or I'm gonna make her more cool, or I'm gonna make her more this. You know what I'm saying? It's like she really stuck to it to the point where she still was the lead and was that same Awkward Black Girl that we had seen come up on YouTube. Like, man, her success story.
it's
I'm so
intense. And on
proud.
top of that, it's a big community is such a big part. Like that's what we were when we were talking about this earlier today on this, is like your community is such a big part of helping you to continue to champion your own personal brand,
Woo!
because a lot of
Yes.
what you do is, you know, that's who you find out, you know, what your brand. I have a business partner, Jim Melody. She says this all the time. Your brand is not necessarily just what you say it is, but it's also what the community says it is, because
Woo!
if you know how it's being received, right? And I think Issa and Rihanna do such good examples, and we're going to just use those two queens today as some powerful examples of what it means when you know you're defining that personal brand. We all love, you know, first of all, let's talk about how when we're looking at the trajectory of careers, right? You know, we saw these labels that got placed on, and it's super dope to see it now as she's a mother, Rihanna, of like the bad girl, bad gal energy, bad girl energy, bad girl energy. And now she has children, and it's so cool to see her be like, I'm still gonna authentically be myself. I'm still the bad gal, but y'all about to get all these pictures of my son. Y'all about to
Right.
get all these
Like
pictures
she's
of the new baby
her
when
whole thing was about being unapologetic. And that's why
herself.
she's like, yeah, I'm gonna wear a crop top while I'm pregnant. I'm gonna because why not? That's what I want to do, right?
And
Just
I love that.
embracing who you are at every stage of your life.
And I think Issa does a really good example, a good job at that as well. When we talk about, you know, coming from the inner city, you know what I'm saying? Like Issa she's from LA, you know, she's not necessarily from the gutter parts of LA, no, but she's done such an incredible job as an LA native of really honoring her community in that way. Her show operates as a time capsule. You know, a lot of the things that were done in that was the big part of her personal brand. She said, look, I'm from here. I'm always going to represent for here. I'm not going to let the industry change me. I'm going to, instead of shooting the show anywhere else, like most shows are shot in Atlanta and they look like they're somewhere else. They're not. You know, most shows are shot in LA at the studio, but it looks like it's in Europe somewhere, and it's not. And she said, no. We're going to actually, my brand is I'm an LA girl through and through, and I'm going to honor that. And I'm going to make sure that's a part of every single thing that I do, because that's what's important to me. And that's what's important to my real life community. And as a result of that, honoring her own personal brand and what she stood on throughout her career, she helped bring money back into the community, right?
Hello?
You know what I mean? So it's like when you have a very clear sense of what you stand on, what your ethos are, you know, and being authentically yourself, and defining your personal brand around that, there's so much power that can come from that. Let's be real. Let's really think about it. I don't know that people really, really, really thought when they were listening to Ponder Replay back in the day in the early 2000s that Rihanna would be a billionaire. One of the few Black women billionaires
Hello?
right
Under
now.
35.
I don't know that people thought that.
Under 35. And she's an immigrant. It's like there's so many things that had worked against her and she still made that happen. Come on.
Because she stayed true. I'm going to stay unapologetically me. If you pay attention to her lines, her products aren't unreasonably priced. Why? Because her community can't afford.
Listen,
Her
when
community
she
can't
had
afford that, and that's
launched
a big part
Fenty
of her.
Beauty, everybody was shook. When she had launched Savage X, everybody was shook because she was so inclusive with the sizes, with the colors, with everything. They was not playing with her. They was shook. And she
Because she was
changed the
clear.
landscape forever.
Because she stayed firm on who she was and what she knew she had to offer. So when you're defining, you know, how you want people to see, how you want people to receive your message, your offering, your gifts, your talents, whatever it is, just stay true and authentic to yourself. I think that that's the biggest part of what you can do as you're defining your personal brand when you're trying to enter into the music, media, entertainment industries. Like I said, everything moves a mile a minute. It operates a lot off of trends. It's inspired a lot off of the current trends, but don't allow for that to, you know, have you lose sight of whomever you are authentically in yourself and what you stand on, because you can go really far with it. You know, we're giving you just 2 examples. There are so many more other people that we could talk, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, all these. Prince did it a lot. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can
Long
go
live
about
Prince,
doing it too,
man.
you know. He was more quiet about it. There's so many things that, like, on a brand level, you know, in his personal ethos, people didn't know Prince was behind, but he was. And, you know, and I think that's because he was like, I'm not going to allow for the industry to stop me from being able to do what I need to do for my city, for my community, where I come from, this and that. But it started with knowing, you know, being clear on, this is who I am as a creative, as an artist, as a person. This is what I'm contributing on. Here are my passions, and here's how I'm going to double down on them. I think it could be really dope. Let's talk about some of the, like, hacks or tips and things like that for building your personal brand, like IRL and online. Like,
Yeah.
what are some of the, and I'm also looking at the chat too. So, like, what are some of the what are some of the, like, IRL hacks that you've, like, kind of peeped over?
So IRL hacks. You know what's interesting? Like, for me personally, it's just kind of like maintaining, quote unquote, a look. And it's not even on purpose. It's just the way I am. It's like, I love my hair big and curly. I love nails. I'm blind, so I gotta wear glasses. And I also have this weird thing where I don't like touching my eyeballs. That's actually why I don't have contacts. I hate touching my eyeballs. So it's like people see me and they're like, oh, you look just like your profile picture. I'm like, girl, because I look like this all the time. Like, I don't switch it up at all, because I'm a very, like, easy, low maintenance person. Like, as much as I would love to have different hairstyles, different this, I'm like, that's too much work. It's too much work. I'm gonna just do my thing, walk into these streets, you see what's going on, but
Girl, I feel that. No, I feel that. And I think that that's a big part too. You know, it's interesting. So one of the things that I am big on when it comes to that, and I love that you just said, like, oh, you look exactly like your profile pic. One of the biggest IRL hacks that I often try to champion for folks, and I've seen it happen a lot, is, like, wearing your brand in some capacity. So for Lottie, for example, and if you follow Lottie on any socials, you'll also see, like, even some of her little icon, like, she has graphics that are literally, like, you could tell, like, that's Lottie in a digital, like, in a cartoon colored picture drawn form, whatever. All of those different things, like how she says, my hair is big, it's curly, I have the glasses, so you know what she looks like. I have been seeing recently too, and I in some of the artists that I consult with, I say this all the time. If you have a fashion line, for example, or if you have any type of merch, for example, and you're at an event, if it's appropriate, you should be wearing your merch. You should always be wearing your
oh,
merch.
1,000%. That's the least you can do.
That's the you know, it's funny. Once I was at an event recently and I was wearing one of my company shirts, and somebody was like, oh my God, you're, like, in your uniform. And I'm like, yeah, it's my brand, like, 100%. Sure, we can call it a uniform, or I'm literally a walking marketing branding. This is the brand moment right now. I want y'all to know that this is what I'm affiliated with. This is the logo that you can associate with me. You know what I'm saying? Those things really matter. So,
and
like,
on the other hand too, I think it's also important sometimes to wear the brands that you want to align with. Like, I think about how Lil Yachty was wearing Nautica like it was his job until they had to offer him a deal. I'm like, bro.
How about Run DMC and how they are one of the biggest reasons why Adidas is Adidas? My Adidas, like, come on. Come on. We have so many examples of this, like, so many examples of this where, you know, I think I will be honest and say I do my best. And I've told Lottie this too. I do my best. Anytime I'm out or even on Hear Us Out, I try my best to wear a Black owned brand. Why? Because it's
And we
my
love
brand.
to
My
see
personal brand is to
it.
amplify other Black brands, right? So I'm always,
Period.
if you paying attention, I'm always wearing a Black owned brand. So make sure you pay
Period.
attention to these labels and tap in with them if you can catch them later on. But my point is, those are the types of relationship building that you can be doing for your personal brand just on a real in-person level. Like how are you, me and Lonnie, you're big on manifesting. How are you manifesting? How are you affirming what those future opportunities will look like? Like she just said, Lil Yachty wearing what he's wearing. Her is a good example. The glasses, the sunglasses, and naturally
Bruh.
what happened? Come on,
Bruh.
come
Like
on.
you would see some hair, some curly long hair, and some glass. And you knew who was. Same thing with SZA. SZA's whole thing for the longest time, everyone was like, "What's her bundles? Where did she get her hair done?" Because she would have the biggest hair. And if you know anything about wigs, you cannot buy a hair like that. Like you got to get that done, or it grows like that naturally. So people are like, how?
Nicki
And nobody
Minaj, the
figured it
very
out.
long, colorful week down to the ground. Come on, come on. How are what are the ways in which you become memorable? I think it's funny. I think this conversation is actually pretty funny because I just started recently wearing my afro all of the time, and now it's like a thing. I just had somebody, I posted
And I love your hair.
recently. Thank you. I posted a picture recently, and my aunt was like, "Oh my god, I didn't recognize you without your natural." I was like, "Oh, dang! I guess that's
That
become
is
my brand
hilarious.
now." So these are some of those
It's like
examples.
Beyonce being honey colored blonde, like
And
sometimes she changes it, but
but
99% of the time it's Beyonce blonde. And you know the color range. It's like between 5 shades, Beyonce blonde.
you know it. It's rare. We might have seen her with a little dark black, close to black, maybe like once or twice. Even when she's acting in movies. Like,
Listen, her ability to maintain her
I'm talking about
visual
that
branding is absurd.
through and through. But those are some of the hacks. I think another hack too, when it comes to the IRL, is leveraging those networking opportunities to amplify your personal brand. So, for example, anytime you go on a professional level, anytime you go to an event, if you don't have business cards or you don't have a QR code, have your portfolio link ready, so that when you meet somebody and they ask for your contact information, the first thing you give them is something to remember you by. And that's how you can solidify that personal brand and
Absolutely.
how
You
you're
can get a
building it
virtual thing too. Some people have a QR code on their phone. Some people have those like
on the
dot
phone
cards.
page.
This is not an ad. I don't have any of these damn products, but it's like it's so easy now to like get it done.
No, for sure. For sure. It makes it super accessible. I think that's the dopest part. Now, online. Let's talk about online. Because online is building your personal brand online is a lot of work for sure.
It is a
But
lot of work. Okay, let me give you like one of the easiest hacks in the world. And you can steal this from me because I do this all the time. And I do this a lot with like Twitter, especially. Have one kind of tweet you send every day. Have one kind of tweet you
do
send once a
that.
week. And have one kind of tweet you send bi-weekly. And then have one kind of tweet you send once a month. And after, maybe like 3 to 6 months, people will catch on. They might not catch on necessarily consciously, but in their back of the mind, when they see that tweet, they're like, I know exactly who that's from. Branding tip.
That's a good tip. Y'all saw me quiet right now.
And that's just Twitter. And you can do it with all of the different platforms, right? It's like, there are certain people where you see their content and you're like, oh, I know who that is. Or that's their theme. That's what they do. Right? It's like, what you have the fashion ones who are like, oh, what you wearing or who you got on, whatever. You have the people, everyone knows how you doing. I didn't do it that great, but you know who that is. You know what I'm saying?
We know who that is.
Bruh, and those can translate virtually or IRL. It's like, branding is honestly a lot easier than you think, but to drill it in, repetition is important.
And consistency.
So, and that consistency can show up in one way or another. It could be you have, a theme song. Some people have their own theme songs for their content. It's crazy. You go on their YouTube, they got a little, I think Nardwuar is actually one of those people.
Yes.
Sure
1,000%.
But he's so always on brand. He was got the little hat on, he got the glasses.
Always on brand. And and Nardwuar is a good example because even though you never know what to expect, you consistently never know what to expect.
You know, he's extremely detailed. He's someone who does his research to a fault. He will ask people questions they forgot about their own selves. It's like there are just certain characteristics that translate sometimes in real life, but sometimes online. And I think honestly, online it's a lot easier because you don't got to do that much. Between like scheduling tools and templates, like Canva can help you with your like branding. There's so many things that you can do virtually that you can automate as well to make it easier. Even us, like Hear Us Out, you know how you know it's Hear Us Out? Because well, first of all, it's two of us. Second of all, because you got our logo. Third of all, we always got the yellow in the background. That's how you know what it is. You don't ever see the yellow in the background, you'd be like, is this Hear Us Out? If you don't see the two of us, you're like, is this Hear Us Out?
No, she's not wrong. And I think too, one of the cool parts too, one of the things I will say, and I'm mainly speaking to the people out there that are not that have a hard time when it comes to the being online consistently, being on the social media consistently. I understand, I get it. I'm one of those people. I'm introverted as heck, so I don't always like to post everything online. But one of the things that I will say to do, and I just started doing this last year, is like, and y'all will start to notice it if you start following me. Don't be afraid to build up your Rolodex or your directory or your whole Bible of content, and then just start releasing it out. And the reason why I say that is because that helps you to solidify the brand too. Like for me, I will take 30 days and I will work. I will be producing content and getting things done and all of this stuff. And as I'm doing those things, I'll try my best to, maybe it can be as simple as just put your phone up on a daggone tripod. If you don't have a tripod, let it lean up against something and just press record and watch you while you're doing whatever you're doing. I know everybody doesn't always like to have their phone there or have all those different things there, but the helpful part to this is that as you continue to just kind of build up your whole directory or your whole Bible of everything, to Lottie's point, there are a lot of tools out there that can help you to just automate things, and you can be present even when you're not. You know what I mean? I spent all of 2022 just off of the grid. I chose to make that sacrifice, but what happened from that is a lot of the things that I'm doing in 2023 or that I'm showing in 2023 are from there. And I can just show, okay, here's what my personal brand, how I've identified it, how I built it over time, and I'm giving it to you consistently so that you're getting it and you're getting the hacks and you're getting the tools. I think being consistent as it pertains to getting your messaging out there is super helpful. But also like having a clear sense of like, we're gonna always come back to this, having a clear sense of self in every single thing that you do. Don't try and spend a lot of your time trying to be whatever you think the thing is instead of just being yourself. I think that helps so much because it's harder to keep up if you're trying to match what everyone else is doing, but it doesn't necessarily feel the most natural or the most
right. And also just know you can tailor things to you, right? It's like you can see what popular influencers or creators do and see what you can adapt from that for yourself. But that doesn't mean do exactly what they do. You extrapolate and you apply it.
For sure.
Do we have questions, by the way?
I was about to say, not SZA in the bundles.
Listen, what I tell you, that probably was like one of my number one search results for several years.
No, I'm not gonna lie.
The hair.
I was wondering, I'm like, her hair is so full.
I still need that. Listen, when I get a bag, y'all are gonna know because you're gonna see that these dresses are about to be serious. I'm dead ass. No shame in my game.
I'm not mad at it. Y'all see, I changed my hair.
Hello?
And that's mainly just because my fro don't want to do nothing but be a fro. So it just be different every week. But no, I feel that. If y'all have any questions, that's so true. Maybe being that honey blonde is a mainstay. It truly is. And it works. We know. Even this is how you know when your personal brand is like clear and it works. To Lottie's point, when people know it's you without even really knowing or reading or seeing. Like Beyonce could literally post a picture of her standing with her back to the camera and you just know. She could have you.
First of all, Beyonce's hair is so iconic that when other people have similar hair to her, they'll be like, I thought that was Beyonce. Like, bruh. It's like now that type of hair Anytime you
Beyonce
see any other
hair.
artist with it, they're like, oh, she got a Beyonce wig on. I'm like, I'm screaming.
No, that's true. That's true. Through and through. Or no, prime example. Alicia Keys, early 2000s. We knew braids were her thing. We knew. Sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's those small things. Same with Issa. We know she's always going to have some type of crazy bomb natural hairstyle.
Right.
She's gonna be on all the natural girlies inspo boards. She's on mine.
Listen,
You
her
know what I
hairstylist
mean?
always got her right. Everyone was like, who is behind these looks?
No, truly, sometimes it's as simple as that. We're giving you those physical examples because they're easier to kind of understand and pinpoint. But like, I mean, I could go as far as freaking look, we got Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We knew Mr. Rogers was gonna put them kids on, he was gonna have his sweater, and we were gonna see what was going on with the puppets. We knew that, right? We know all of these different examples. Those small things matter. So I feel like identifying those things help you to really be able to solidify, like, okay, this is what we know you by. It goes so much further than you think, especially in this industry where there's so many people doing the same thing different ways. How can your way be the way that people know you by? How can people, like Wendy was on to something when she hit us with that, how you doing? Like it just, like it blows my mind because you really know. You know,
like even it's funny, you see even people like DJ Khaled, we the best music. Like
hey yo, Pierre. Like, come on.
Drake vocals come in yet?
Okay.
That man, oh my God. When Snapchat was like at its most lit, everybody was tuning into his shenanigans because he was always...
Moral of the story is it seems like it's a lot, but really when you just double down on that, like shout out to Rihanna, that unapologetically, authentically yourself, and you can identify like, okay, what is me? What's my thing? You know, what is my thing that you know, I think a lot too as an actor, we call these trigger words. They're trigger words are basically words that help bring you into something, right? So like for example, when you're doing different dialects or things like that, there's a trigger word that you can say that helps you to immediately be able to go into that certain accent or that dialect and things like that. Like what is your thing that constantly keeps you grounded in yourself as you continue to build out this career in the music, media, entertainment industries, especially as a performer? What are those things that, you know, help people to really remember it's you? You know, help people to really know like, okay, that's you, that's your thing. That's how we know when we hear that. We know when we see that. We know when we read that, who it is.
You need an Ice Spice like.
I mean, we have so many examples. Now that we've done this episode,
branding,
I'm like, dang, people are killing it on their
branding is too on point. When you see a curly, red-headed ginger, everybody's like, that's Ice Spice. You see Annie, that's Ice Spice. What? The way she cooperated? I'm sorry, I can't.
You see, like there's so many dope examples of, and to give a more like less of a like, I guess physical example too of like, there are, you know, if there's any directors out there, shout out to y'all. Spike Lee, you know, a Spike Lee joint when you watching it, like, you know, a Spike Lee joint. It's the music. It's the shots, the angles in which things are going, like, you know one. Donald Glover, when we see any, I can tell a Donald Glover show when I'm watching a Donald Glover show. I know, just like when we shift over to Childish Gambino, same person. I know, like, I can just,
I like what you're getting into for sure. Even like with music, it's like, if Young Metro don't trust you, you know who it is. You know, right? Metro Boomin, it's like he has these signature tags. Like Pharrell, when he had his 4-count start, that was signature to him. There were just certain things you would hear, you like, I know who it is. And that's even doper because like I don't even gotta see you, I don't gotta hear you, but I know that intro, I know who it is.
There's so many things.
You could be recognizable in so many ways. And yeah, it doesn't have to be physical, it doesn't have to be, sometimes it's just by what you hear. Sometimes it's just like even certain styles with like you mentioned, like directors and stuff, like there's just certain types of even lighting in films. You're like, oh, I know exactly who.
I
Like,
know exactly who's behind this. Just
it's
because you could,
crazy.
it's interesting, right? So the more clear you can get, I think one of the through lines of all these people that we're naming too is like, again, doubling down on the thing that's them. Like they're like, this is my thing.
It's so, it's funny because I remember I had said earlier, like, don't have a niche, but you have to have things that are niche to you, right? So it's like the things that you do that nobody's doing or very few people are doing. So that way people can be like, oh, this, that, and the third, there's like 2 people who do that, like in the whole world.
And
right?
I know who to call, and I know who to go to, and I know why. You know, the more clear you can get with that, it's like, oh, I know they're going to capture this sound. You know, you go to certain producers for certain sounds, right? You go to certain songwriters for certain vibe, certain story. You know what I'm saying? You go to a certain director for a certain look, and then you go to a different editor for a different, you know what I'm saying?
That
But that
part,
a lot of that
that
comes into
part.
their personal brand, their style, their approach. The more clear
Right.
you can get about what's yours and honor yourself in that, honor your own creative process in that, solid. Are there any questions? Because y'all know there's no questions.
And
Shout
this
out to
is
y'all
true
for
for both
voting.
creatives and executives. So I need y'all to understand that.
Ooh,
Because like a lot of times people think personal branding, well, I'm not an artist. Okay, me either. Now what? like,
oh, it's true. It's true. We could talk about it on an executive level. It's true. And the thing is, I guess we gave all those examples to say, because it can happen on an executive level too. I've seen it. You know, some of the bosses that I've had, for example, their approach to management, their approach to producing. A lot of the management companies that I worked at were also production companies. So a lot of us were producers and managers, right? Their approach, how they handled things, how they arranged certain deals. We knew, oh, that's the so-and-so's touch. That's the so-and-so's
even certain
negotiation.
types of programming and events, Rock Nation Brunch, who is that? Like y'all know there are just certain things that are staples when they happen, right? And that's like attributed to that person.
You could even look at when better. Oh, great example when we're talking about the execs and stuff like that. For example, CultureCon is a huge convention, right?
If y'all
People
can
have
go to
been going to
CultureCon,
it,
go.
all
I'm
of
going.
that. HBO as a company knew this conference aligns with our brand. So we're going to help
Brilliant.
amplify that.
Brilliant.
So, you know,
Complex is great at
it's
that
not
too.
just a
Complex Con
creative
is
thing.
huge, right?
Yeah. It's not just necessarily like an artist thing. Oh, only artists can have a personal brand. Only creatives can have a brand. Listen, let me tell you something. If you're an attorney, you have your own approach to how you handle that courtroom.
Bruh, look at Judge Judy.
Than...
Talk about personal branding.
Hello. Wait a minute. Yeah, we can give a lot of
you could be
this
watching Judge Judy
specific.
with your eyes closed. You know. There's just certain things that are very characteristic to a person.
And that's
and it's like brand. It makes them larger than life. It's so funny. And again, like a lot of this stuff is like, you know, looks and personality related, but sometimes it's just the way things are conducted, you know? Like, and it even like honestly, listen, I'm giving you all some homework. Research 3 of your favorite creatives, any field, doesn't have to be music, 3 of your favorite executives, and also 3 of your favorite brands, and look into what stands out about. And I've actually done this myself, because like, you know, you look at Apple, right? Cash App, Nike, these things resonate with certain types of people for the most part. Why is that?
Ooh, I'm glad you talked about this. Ooh.
And then reverse engineer. Look at the ones that you like. You're like, why do I like this brand? Like, why am I, you know, an iOS girl and not an Android girl? No offense to them people, I'm not. You know, it's like, why are people so strong to the point where people are like, if it's a green text, I can't date you or I can't talk to you. Why is it that deep? That's crazy when you think about like the way it affects people psychologically. What makes people want to call themselves Beehive, Navy, Arbs? It's like, what is it that people resonate with so strongly that they want to identify as that thing?
And I'm really glad that Lottie talked about this, because we can give on a business level for any business owners out there, when you're talking about the personal brand as it pertains to the company's personal brand, let's talk about it from that perspective. It may not be as personal as the company's brand, but pay attention to this. And this is an example that I've heard this so many times as of late, and I've been talking about it. fast food chains, for example, if you notice,
Oh my
all
God.
the food chains, their logos are red. I want y'all to do some research on why that is. And then we can talk about how this brand conversation
Don't get
isn't
me
just
started.
specific to creatives and examples. I mean, and executives. McDonald's, Wendy's, El Pollo Loco, if you have that wherever you are, Arby's, In-N-Out, they all have what color? Red. There's a reason
A
why.
lot of yellow too.
And a lot of yellow. There's a reason why, right? There are things that have, like, look into that, and then y'all see. There are, when it comes to defining that brand, there's so many different things that you can be doing to help solidify what's important to you. Yes, the authenticity of your brand. Yes, but also how are you drawing people into what it is that you have to offer? And that's part of why those fast food chains, for example, have the color schemes that they have. And you'll see when you look it up. But I say all that to say, this is definitely not just specific to creatives and artists. And yes, we are talking about music and media specifically,
sure.
but for real, this conversation expands through and through to a lot of different industries, paths, whatever the case may be. So for sure.
Seriously, and honestly, the brand study is so interesting because when you think of, soda or water, there's so many brands of water. There's so many brands of soda. Why is Coca-Cola king, right? Like over, I don't know, Sprite, Pepsi, Fanta. Like why? Like look into the things that you like and also look into things that you don't like. A lot of it has to do with the branding. There might be nothing wrong with it, but you just don't align with the brand. Like, why do people like Nike a lot more than New Balance? Like, they're both sneakers. Like, they're both like,
truly.
Why? Like, why Puma versus Adidas? Why? Look into that. And that also helps you figure out what works with your own personal brand. Because honestly, like, even as, a professional or a company, whatever, you're a brand too. So keep that in mind.
You're the CEO of your brand at that. So do that research and become an expert at whatever it is that you're passionate about. But do it on the passion. Do it on what you're passionate about. We always gonna tell y'all here on Hear Us Out here, all right? Do what you're passionate about. Do what you're passionate about, okay? Go for the thing that you're passionate about and build your brand from a place of passion, and you'll see.
And also be public about the passion, because again, the things that'll come your way.
It will come your way.
I'm thinking it's so funny. So like one artist I really like is Jack Harlow, and he's been rapping about New Balance before y'all knew who he was, like since 2017. And now that he has a whole sneaker with them, I'm like, bruh, New Balance, nobody even cared about that. Everyone was like, Nike, Adidas, this. Even Reebok was, no offense to Reebok sketches, all them people was doing way better than New Balance. I'm sorry. And it's like, he really spoke that into existence. Don't be afraid to make it public.
What you're passionate about.
Because when you're consistent about the things that you're passionate about, something gonna shake. Let me tell you right now.
And when it shakes,
that tweeted into existence campaign. Listen, I know Twitter is doing but the tweeted into existence. Oh my God. I'll never forget when Meg was like, I need me a team and this, that, and third. I'm telling you, this rap is gonna pop off. And bruh, 2 times.
No. I'll never forget when Keke Palmer was like, I want to be in an episode of Insecure.
Hello.
And Issa was like, bet.
Like, you gotta make these things known. I'm telling you, I know we talk about shooting a shot and this, that, and the third, but there's something about making things publicly known that draws them into your.
And don't be ashamed of making things publicly known. Don't be ashamed of like, what are they gonna think about me?
They're not thinking about you.
Shot on your passion, or they're not thinking about you at all. Like life. But regardless, don't even worry about that. You think
the algorithm not even showing your post. They're not thinking about you. Sorry. Like, so people who need to see it gonna see it though.
Do you? Your brand will only go as far as you go with it. So if you ain't talking about it, how you think people gonna know?
Hello?
If you're putting it out there.
Hello? Oh, okay. Can I add one more thing? Well, it's a long episode. I love how we just keep talking about this. Hashtags. Hashtags are important. Think about the 5 hashtags that resonate with you most and use 1 or 2 of them with every single post that you make. Because then when someone clicks the hashtag, especially if it's your name, all they see is your content. Very, very important. Hashtags don't necessarily do much algorithm wise per se, depending, but that's a pro tip right there.
I love it.
On that note, this is Hear Us Out. The River and Lottie, we love you. If you
Episode
like this
8, we love
episode,
y'all.
share it with your friends. Tweet
Share
it,
it with
post
your
it to IG, post it to LinkedIn, whatever. Tag us. We love you.
We love you. We'll put out another poll because y'all know y'all voted for this.
Seriously.
Yeah, it was a tie. We broke the
It was a
tie.
tie.
But we'll put out another poll and let's keep the conversation going, y'all. Okay. All right, y'all. Happy Sunday. We'll
Happy
see y'all
Sunday.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.